Okay, so we weren't talking before because I really wanted to adjust this microphone. You weren't aware of what our strong mayor debate in the town is going on about, and I wanted to record you watching me tell you about it.
Right, because I was trying to have a friendly conversation with him, and we came to the conclusion that if we're ever together, cameras must be rolling.
Everything is content.
Because everything is content. Yeah. But also, I'm Dustin Morris. This is Pat Bowden. Fairly informative. Continue.
Okay, so you remember 2016, right? 3 years ago, Yakima, the city of Yakima, had a lawsuit filed against them by the ACLU, saying that our city council electoral system violated the Constitution. That it
didn't you made some videos about this, didn't you?
I don't know about this one. This is after I kind of walked away from a lot of the political stuff.
Yeah.
So they won, and the city of Yakima was forced to rework its electoral system. Had to draw new districts. Every city council member had to be from the district that they were running in, which is different from before because the districts were drawn a different way, and a city council member did not have to be a resident of the district they represented under the prior system. Now they do. And all council members were elected at large, meaning there's just kind of the cascade. Every person voted for every section, essentially. Mm-hmm. So that means the people that showed up the most to poll and vote were the most represented, which was typically, almost across the board, everything like west of 16th.
Okay.
So you start to see where there's like disparity in the government.
Yeah.
So that was a lawsuit that was filed, won, and we had to, and for those reasons, and those were, again, nutshell reasons of why it was redrawn and made different. Now, there is currently a move to change our government again by a number of citizens to go from a city manager position, which is a officer of the government hired by the city council, voted on, and then they kind of act like the president, essentially, in that business way, and oversee the departments of the city government.
Okay.
And they answer to city council,
okay,
who answers to us. Under a strong mayor system, that position would no longer be a city manager, it would be the mayor. And the mayor would be elected at large by the whole city.
Okay.
So whoever shows up most to the polls decides who that person is.
Oh, I already see it. Continue.
Right? You see where the struggle comes from.
Yeah.
Depending on how the charter is written to have a strong mayor, the strong mayor will not only run the basic structure of the city government, but will also have voting power within city council, which you can see also creates an extremely powerful individual within the government.
Right, and the fact that what you described is how everything west of 16th, everyone west of 16th has the most say in...
Because they're the ones that typically show up most to the polls. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, and it's not necessarily everyone west of 16th's fault. And that's probably a topic for another conversation, because it's pretty hard to have that conversation without super pissing off a lot of people.
Fair enough.
But there's a lot of the reasons and concerns and things around that are valid on both sides. But here's the part where it gets... Here's the part where Yakima, Washington turns into Pawnee, Indiana. Right.
The socialist hellscape.
No, the home of the lard burger or whatever.
Oh yeah.
What was I talking about? Where was I?
How Yakima is becoming...
Oh, right. So a strong mayor, in and of itself, Jen, is not illegal, right? If there are other cities in Washington and the Northwest and the country that have strong mayor systems, they are perfectly legit. The problem is the way the proponents of the strong mayor system and the city council tried to go about having it, the structure they were following, that itself was illegal. Jinko, go. Well, allegedly. So, city council did not vote to change the charter. They said, what we will do is vote to have it put on the ballot in February for citizens to vote on. As this process was going down, there were a couple of city council meetings in which a horde of people showed up to the meeting and said, don't do this. We don't want this to happen. Not okay. All reported in the Herald, right? Mm-hmm. In the series of those meetings, the legal counsel of the city said, don't do this. If you put this into measure or even put it to the votes of the people, it will be violating the state constitution and possibly the Constitution. And then lawyers from the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, and another group whose name I keep forgetting also said, if you vote on this, we will pursue legal action against the city. And then the city council said, hey, let's do it. And they did. Then, like a week after they voted, or a couple weeks after they voted to have the measure put on the ballot for the people to choose, those two groups representing two citizens in Yakima filed legal actions against the city. Weird. The part that gets me is I just wish there had been somebody there to say, hey, don't do this. What you're about to do is probably going to get you on, oh, wait.
It sounded like there was a lot of people that
There were a lot of people. That's the
doing
crazy thing. And the part that drives me crazy is it's like, all right, so we spent, our city spent like $3 million fighting the last lawsuit. Mm-hmm. There was just an article in the New York Times where they came and did an expose off of one of our exiting city council members and said, the divide of Yakima is representative of all of the country. So now there's like the country, or at least the viewership of the New York Times, watching Yakima. We just lost a lawsuit that basically said we're racist. And now, like, we're gearing up for another one, apparently, this time with the New York Times watching. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, look, there's just the straight up idiocy of like a bunch of legal experts saying, if you do this, you're breaking the law. And they go, no, let's do it. Like, what the, what? What were you doing? And then after that, it's just like the political spectacle available there of like look, sometimes these changes take a while. You know what I mean? They take some time, so give it more than just a couple of years. Like, bureaucracies take more than 3 years to properly function. I mean, they really do. That's how the government works. I've worked in state agencies and in education, and bureaucracies are preposterous. When you put in a new one, you gotta wait a generation to see if it works or not. Like,
but they're trying to expedite that process.
Yeah, and it's not working, it's broken, and I'm like, you don't know that. No one actually knows that. And so it's just like it's like Vacation with the Clampetts down there at City Council. You're just like, what the fuck is happening?
It's just, well, Rome wasn't built in a day, you know, that whole saying. And it's like,
yeah,
this is going to take time to see if it actually works, rather than, throwing on your shades and like with a blunt and a 40, just being like, fuck y'all, I'm gonna do whatever I want.
And that's what these guys feel like they're trying to do. And it's just one of those, like, and again, like, a strong mayor is not illegal. But it's kind of one of those, is it a good idea? Probably not. And even if it were a good idea, we have a huge national publication organization watching what's happening here, plus 2 national legal organizations saying, we're going to fight this no matter what you do. It's kind of one of those, like, is it worth the fight? Which is why I sent in a letter to the editor being like, look at it from that monetary perspective, that, like, fiscally conservative perspective. Is this worth the next $2 to $5 million to just lose a lawsuit, maybe, and have the New York Times say we're racist?
Right, so it's not only the loss of money, but it's also the slander against Yakima, which is funny because within the state of Washington, Yakima is regularly slandered. You can tell people you're from Yakima, and they're like, "How are you not dead?"
Right.
They think it's like gangland completely.
Yeah.
Already, I mean, but that's within Washington. The whole country doesn't know.
Most people in the country think Washington is a rainforest, or like, you're from Yakima in Washington.
Seattle.
Oh, it must rain there a lot, huh?
Seattle, right?
No, this is a desert. First off,
kind of like a shrub steppe, and they're like, what
yeah, and it's one of those things where like the social, racial, and socioeconomic complexity of Yakima is real, and it's one of those like I'm talking shit about the council right now, and we're talking shit about these are the people, and I just want you to know, like, I'm not ignorant of the complexity of the situation, but in my mind, it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. They were told, you will break the law if you do X, and then 4 out of the 7 said, let's do X, and they voted for it. Like, what? Like, what did you think was going to happen? And there was so many ways. There was so much cover. They could have been like, oh, those damn liberals from the left. Like, they could have just voted against it and been like, look, we just don't have the power, damn liberals. Or, like, or said, look, we're not going to do this one now. Send it back to the citizens that brought it up and said it's not quite ready. Mm-hmm. Here's some help you could have if you want to bring it back later. There were so many options. They could have even supported the people that wanted to be like, it won't pass this way. Let's rework it so it will. They did none of that. They're just like, oh, law breaking. Let's do that. I can't.
So
I get so mad.
So the implementation of the strong mayor, which when you started saying strong mayor, it sounded like a really terrible like Saturday morning cartoon or something. like what follows Dexter's Laboratory, and like one of those little shorts that they do. strong mayor is like actually Powerpuff Girls, just like a little.
Or it's like a stop motion video with a He-Man like action figure.
Except he's just got like a was it a fountain pen and a bill?
Yeah.
He doesn't have a sword.
I'm just a bill.
I'm only a bill. But so the strong mayor implementation is to try and fix a previous system they feel is not working.
Yeah, they feel that the current city council, city manager system is not effective and not working. And in some respects, they're not wrong, because we've had a handful of city managers in a very short period of time. Mm-hmm. And the turnover has been relatively high, and a lot of voters think that it's too high and is therefore leaving our city not functioning well. And I'm not saying they're wrong.
Right. And
there's also a certain level of, if you have a strong mayor who's voted for, they're accountable to the people. Mm-hmm. The people, that's democracy. And that is a valid support of a strong mayor system. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of one of those where, like, is that right for us in our city with this kind of history of disenfranchisement of certain groups of people? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just not the right idea for us. And that should be considered too.
Having a city council where each council member is representative of a district, each having a say, and then the city manager is essentially, I don't want to say pawn of the council, but like...
Well, I mean, they are. Like, the council says, we want this to happen, city manager, make the government do that. And he's like, gotcha. Like, that's more or less how, I mean, that's, again, the nutshell version of how city managers work. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and
there's merits to both. I mean, there is.
And now that I'm asking questions about it, it's kind of starting to formulate more in my head, because, like you said, there are certain groups because that disparity still exists to a degree, mm-hmm. and even
less so than before. And even if we implemented a strong mayor, that disparity would agree less than it used to, for sure.
Right, but the existence of it still, and then the fact that a majority of the base that votes is coming from like the western, more hate to say opulent side of Yakima.
Well, that's the criticism, is that they're largely white and they largely have money and they have more power, and that's essentially the crux of the argument against the strong mayor system.
Yeah, and I mean I grew up out just outside of Yakima, out in West Valley, mm-hmm. or out past Wiley City, and I mean even living out there, I mean I grew up around some people who were just like humble, country folk cowboys, but I also grew up around, like I went to school with, through most of my K through 12, people who are very well off. I know Borton Fruit's son. I went to school with him. He's the same grade as me. I know the miner's son. The one he runs miners now.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up with a lot of well-off kids, so like I can understand how West Valley is considered the opulent side, because I went to West Valley High School, and a lot of people thought like, oh, so you're some fancy pants,
you got some rich money.
And I'm like, no, I'm just a poor country peasant, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, and so it's like that attitude, that stereotype exists, and it's not without truth, like most stereotypes, right? There's some element of truth to them. So I think that's the element of truth to that stereotype. They're not all just a bunch of out-of-touch a-holes, but chances are they have more money than the people in the city to the east of 16th.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the core of it. The part that, and it's one of those, I don't want to take away from either side of the argument for why a strong mayor system would be good or not, because there's a lot to talk about there, and there's a lot of good information and good opinions on which way it should go. And I myself I'm not necessarily sure, you know, where I would stand on that one. But when it comes down to the body of the city council, like, being dislocated from cause and effect, like so blatantly, I just replace all of them. Like, are you kidding me? Like, and the weird part is like, I know some of them, they're not that dumb. Like, they're not. Like, which is why I'm so baffled. Like, what were you doing? Like, I want to sit down and be like, you need to tell me what happened. Like, I need to understand, because that was so stupid. You sat down with a bunch of people and they said, this document as it exists violates the law. Don't put it up for a vote. Don't implement it. Then they did. Like, what?
Not to bring up Dexter's Laboratory again, but it's Dee pressing the button. Ooh, what does this button do? He's like, no, stop, don't press the button.
Yeah, so that's the part that I'm just like, I can't.
Yeah.
And I mean,
because that's the part that irritates you the most, is the flagrant disregard for all of this legal consultation, free legal consultation, saying, by the way, if you break the law, it's going to cost you millions of dollars. And you've also pointed out scrutiny from a newspaper, from the New York Times. Not just any newspaper, the New York Times.
Right, and it's not like the city of Yakima doesn't have national and international interests in how people view it, with, you know, producing the most hops and apples to some sections of the world. Like we are kind of a big deal. Like, most people don't look at us like we're one, but like, if you drink beer, then we're a big deal. Yeah. Like,
Palm Springs of Washington.
Straight up. And so it's one of those things where it's like, just think about it. Like, you didn't have to do a lot of thinking. And it's one of those where I kind of just want to look at them, you know, I know you're there to represent your constituents, but you should also be leaders, you know? Like, you should also be setting up what should happen. And it's one of those things where, like, help your constituents understand. Like, and especially in this circumstance, it's not a strong mayor itself that's illegal. It's not. All they had to do was say, hey, this part, and this part seem to violate the law. Rewrite it. Here's the laws it's a reference to. Send it back. Say, bring it back when you're ready. That's all they had to do. But I even saw in the paper that it sounds as though the citizens that brought it are like, yep, we're just going to walk right back in with the new city council and hand it to them. Like, what? Like, what are you thinking?
Well, interesting thing to consider, too, was you just mentioned about how, obviously, the members of city council have the constituents' interests at heart. Yeah. But they should also be leaders. But not to say, I don't want to sit here and put on my fucking tinfoil hat, obviously. But I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat.
It has that vibe.
Yeah, because it's like,
really does.
What would make you flagrantly disregard the law to possibly cost city millions of dollars, and again, you know, defamation amongst, you know, a large part of the country?
Are we starting a conspiracy theory right now?
Well, let's
start one.
Let's
do it.
Let's start. We're gonna title this "Let's Start a Conspiracy," but because like if you're gonna implement a strong mayor, with also like a majority vote being from the western, more opulent side of the city, it's like who are the constituents and what is the interest in flagrantly disregarding the law?
Well, that's the part that gets me is it's like it was in no one's interest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because it just, the proposal as it stood, and part of it's like procedural stuff. It's not even like the substance of the issue wasn't illegal. It was just like what you were doing was in nobody's interest. Because they voted to take it off of the ballot anyway. Like, they were issued, they're like, yep, here's the letter saying these people are filing legal action against you. And they're like, they met the next day and took it off the ballot. You know, I guess it's okay. 2 days later. But it was just kind of like a, and I'm just sitting here like, they look weak, they look foolish. Like it was in nobody's interest to do it, and they were told it's in nobody's interest to do this. I'm blown away.
It is watching your child from 50 feet away about to put a fork in an outlet, and like, don't do that. Stop it.
And then they look at you,
and it's covered in drool already because they've been eating their mac and cheese, you know.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, and you're like, don't stop it, and then just like, you don't run me.
Yeah,
you don't run this.
You don't own me. Well, and like, you read some of the letters to editors, they're like, why are we letting these liberal da-da-da from wherever, you know, decide what our values are? And I'm like, okay, first off, your values aren't the only ones here. Mm-hmm. Also, fair enough. Are you listening to what the spectrum of values are in the city? Mm-hmm. Feels like maybe not.
Yeah, because you're defining certain groups that are in opposition to you as the other in the bipartisan system, when in reality there are some people who are more like middle leaning. Like, I feel like a lot of people aren't either hardcore liberal or hardcore conservative. They're just like identify as liberal, but we'll hear some conservative views or vice versa, and to kind of start throwing that label around. Or it already breeds the tension. It's already like libtard cucks.
This whole argument now is revolving around like snowflake social justice warrior liberals against the redneck racist conservatives of this town. Like that is what this whole argument is starting to spin around, which is nonsense. Yeah. And it's one of those things like I'm going to sit here and admit like I haven't read the whole proposal. It's available to me. I haven't done it. But it's kind of one of those, which is why I'm also not saying like we should or shouldn't do it. Like, I'm kind of leaning toward it's maybe a bad idea, but I'm also kind of, it's not even on the merits of the strong mayor system. It's the merit on it's just knowing that like when you implement a new system of government, it takes time, like a lot of time. So don't just sit here after 3 years and be like, it's broken, it's never working. Like, okay, we don't know yet. It takes a while. Like, it takes years to sort itself out. So, so take a breath. Maybe it will be okay. And then the second thing is like, again, the actual having a strong mayor, I'm not sold on whether it or not is a good or bad idea, but the actions of the city council to be told like the procedural aspects of what you're doing violates the law, and to have them do it anyway, I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, and so to those of you that do watch this, it's kind of like don't let it be about, you know, SJWs and racists, because it's not. It isn't. There's genuine reasons to have or not have a strong mayor. Yeah. And there's also legitimate reasons to look at city council and ask, what were you thinking? Like, really, I really want an explanation.
What's also interesting to me is what inspires the turnover rate for city manager. Is it the lack of sort of like power? Are they so autonomous? Like, are they so reliant on the council's decree that for them to make any sort of motion?
I'm not sure. I don't know enough about that to.
Because if they're viewing the system as broken, there's a high turnover for the city managers. With each new manager, I feel, would obviously have different interests and different.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's another thing to consider as to why would they consider it to be flawed? Like you said, takes time, but they're not bothering to wait. And again, tinfoil hat time. Why are they not bothering to wait? Like,
so here's my theory. I think we have one of the fruit barons' kids, probably, right?
You're the second person I met who refers to them as fruit barons, but continue. My English teacher being one of them.
I bet you one of them's a lawyer. Just got hired up at the city. So they're over there talking to council. Hey,
wild conjecture, by the way.
Drum up some business for my son, right? Maybe they're not at the city to have their own firm, but one of the measures will be for the city to contract that firm, you know?
This is barely informative. This is the wild conjecture. Now we're there.
Now we've
reached it.
Or what's it? I don't know. We gotta bring in lizard people somehow.
I was just thinking lizard people. Right, just like split.
Well, here's what I mean. Really, when you think about it, like, all right, think about the environmental degradation that industrial agriculture does, right? Mm-hmm. And the damage across the board, both plants, animals, the whole thing. Industrial agriculture is doing. That's also warming up the planet in general. Right?
My brain is following you like every step of the way.
So by having this city, one of the world's hubs of industrial agriculture, be dysfunctional, allows for the degradation to continue, allows for the increased warming of the planet to create that ideal habitat for the lizard people. It just makes sense. It's science. I mean, think about how...
Isn't that what you got your degree in? It was cryptozoology? Like, xenobiology?
No, it was conspiracy science.
Oh, gotcha. All right. With an emphasis on xenobiology.
I like cryptozoology. We'll say that. Cryptozoology.
Cryptozoology,
I don't know what that is. I made it.
Yeah.
Fairhaven. Yeah. Evergreen University. Design your own major.
Yeah. Which I'm glad I honestly didn't get accepted into there because it sounded like a fucking cartoon show in there. So it was like...
Dude, our world sound like a fucking cartoon show. And I'm telling you, the only way for it to be so crazy has to be those lizard people.
Excellent. Yeah, parcel tongue.
Oh yeah, I just called you an asshole in parcel tongue.
Yeah, and I said, fuck you back in parcel tongue.
Although I am in the House of Ravenclaw, so.
Gotcha. I you know what's funny? I'm always thinking to myself, like, please let it be. I feel like I'm Harry Potter when I put on the sword. I'm like, please let it be Gryffindor.
Yeah, I thought so too, and then I was kind of
not Slytherin, not Slytherin. It's like, not Slytherin, eh?
Alright. That's what my hat says to me every day. I think my hat is Slytherin.
No, that's
these are lizard people scales.
That's the mental degradation you're suffering.
Oh, right.
That's the gradual
from the lizard people manipulation, or just being old.
Yeah, sure, Pat. It's the manipulation.
God damn it.
Yeah, sure, buddy. It's the lizard people. Yeah, it's the lizard people.
Yeah, fine.
As if what we're gonna do the fucking of mice and men, you're just gonna be staring out of the sunset talking about the lizard people, and I'm gonna like put a gun to the backyard. Yeah, buddy, it's the lizard people. Also, I saw your Jackie Chan DVD collection. That was distracting me for a second. I was like, does that say Jackie Chan?
There's a part of me that doesn't. I totally forgot we were just talking about Jackie Chan, dude. So these are like his first movies.
Is this like Oh, you're talking about like Drunken Master?
No, I'm talking like before that when he was like this Chinese gymnast star. Young Tiger, Fire Dragon, Eagle Shadow Fist, and Fantasy Mission Force. Fantasy Mission Force.
Hold on. Can you at least read the plot of some of these?
Yeah. No, get it.
Okay, this is the Young Tiger, Fire Dragon.
Box. Look at that.
Hard-hitting thrills, it says on the back. The Young Tiger. Film negative showing the gangster
probably put stuff in that.
You put your weed in there.
No, it's not sealed. Your kids will find it.
That's true. The film negative showing this gangster boss of the underworld perpetrating criminal acts falls in the hands of Mai Fong, an attractive girl who wants to escape the control of the underworld. When she uses the negatives to attempt to bargain for her freedom, she is poisoned by the gangsters. Mai manages to escape with the gangsters in hot pursuit and the poison beginning to take effect. Mai tries to reach the hospital. She dies in a taxi on the way to the hospital. The gangsters are convinced, however, that before she died, Mai handed the negatives to the taxi driver, Bruce. Bruce's troubles have begun. Is it Jackie Chan as Bruce? He's the taxi. I think I've seen this movie. I swear I've seen this movie because he's a taxi driver who's just beating the shit out of gangsters.
Yeah, well, which is like all of these, right? I'm going to read you Fantasy Mission Force.
Please.
During World War II, the Allies are attacked by the enemy and the Army Fund is stolen. The Army Fund.
Right, gotcha.
An intelligence agent of the Allies forms a mission force to get the money back. The Devil Sergeant is the coordinator of the Fantasy Mission Force. I still don't get where the fantasy part comes in.
Yeah, I'm not hearing any elves or...
The Devil Sergeant gathers specialists from every field for his team, each an accomplished fighter. The mission force discovers that the Devil Sergeant is actually using the mission force to locate the Army Fund for his own use. During an intense, ferocious battle, the mission force successfully kills the Devil Sergeant and recovers the Army Fund.
Also, I don't even need to watch the movie now. The plot's been literally synopsized into this... Is that the word? I don't know. Yeah, it's a literally synopsis of the entire film. Is that the Devil Sergeant, that weird guy?
Must be.
Yeah, there's nothing... They call it Fantasy Mission Force.
But they're wearing these ridiculous costumes.
There's nothing fantastical about it, as far as I can tell.
Well, I wonder if maybe they have, like, special powers, or... Because, I mean, this doesn't look like an army specialist of any kind. This looks like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Right. With very terrible wire work. I love watching Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, watching them tiptoe along leaves, you know.
Dude, that was a fantastical show.
I loved it. It's still kind of a beautiful movie, but yeah.
It is, yeah. Well, it's more like abstract art than realistic cinema.
Right.
We should film ourselves watching this.
Yes, please. I desperately want to watch it.
No, yeah, but these are like the first 4 he ever did back when like it's all dubbed crappily in Chinese.
Oh, okay.
Or dubbed over. They're speaking Chinese. Mm. You know what I learned?
What's that?
We had exchange students and teachers come from Macau, China, and Chinese is one language, written language. Cantonese and Mandarin are 2 distinctly separate pronunciations of the same written language.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right?
Okay. So when it is written out, it can still be interpreted, but when it is spoken...
Someone who speaks Cantonese and Mandarin, they can all read the same thing.
That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, another interesting fact I found out from a comedian named Russell Peters. He's considered one of the best like impressionists of different types of accents across the world over, and he can do like a Chinese accent from like a specific part of China, like southern part of China, and then someone will come up and say like that's the best like southern Chinese accent I ever heard or whatever. Huh. And the reason I only bring him up because he talks about how everybody accuses America of being this like the racist, the most racist country in the world. He's like as somebody
possible,
right? But he's like as somebody who's traveled around, there are places that are just as racist and for even more ridiculous reasons. China being one of them, because there are certain Chinese groups that will hate people of other like Chinese groups based on where they live.
Yeah.
In China, similar to America, but in America, obviously, there's a lot more racial diversity here. But in China, they're literally like,
we also have that pesky First Amendment.
Oh yeah.
People getting to say whatever the fuck they want. God damn it.
I remember I was
bunch of bullshit.
I remember researching.
I'm kidding. It's my favorite thing in the world.
Exactly. That's why we're able to sit here and waste our time talking about Fantasy Mission Force.
Right, and the lizard people taking over our city council. It's the only thing that makes sense.
They're taking our jobs, turning the frickin' frogs gay. Turning the frickin' frogs gay.
This won't open. So I don't need to.
What's funny too is like these haven't been opened.
I watched one of these,
and then you couldn't.
And then I was like, I can't. I need a peanut gallery with me to watch these.
It needs to be like Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah, I was waiting for you.
Let's rip on this film. Yeah.
Because they're bad.
Yeah.
They're really bad.
I mean, I love watching just foreign films in general, just because to see how they interpret like action or realism. Bollywood films fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
There's some with such...
I've never really watched one.
Some of them are just... They break out in song and dance. Every one of them is a musical. Even if it's a serious action film, there's got to be a musical number. And then what's also every actor not only has to like look incredible, but also be able to sing and dance. It's almost like how...
So every famous person in India is a triple threat.
Yeah, basically.
Nice.
But it's also... I remember watching a movie called Doom 2, Doom. It's on Netflix.
Oh, I was really hoping it was be about the video game.
Oh, when Chris said, hey, there's a movie called Doom 2, I'm like, wait, they made a sequel to that crappy Doom movie? And then he's just like, no, it's a Bollywood film. I was like, what? And my brother Chris is obsessed with Bollywood films.
You know what I love about when we sit down and film things? You can see how much I haven't been to the gym.
Yeah.
So I say, you look like a model. Look at that.
Yeah.
You look like you straight up walked out of an Abercrombie and Fitch magazine.
I filled out a little bit, though. You know.
I bet you... Oh, like it got all swole. I bet you someone watching and being like, what magazine are you looking at? You're not airbrushed enough. This is what the models actually look like.
That's the budget.
This
is budget Fitch.
Yeah. I'm Abercrombie, and he's Fitch with an extra H.
Fitch it.
Like the Chinese knockoffs, they're just like slightly misspelled.
Oh yeah. So this isn't a real Gucci purse because there's an extra C. Gucci.
But what was really funny about having them over is one of the teachers I co-taught a lesson, and it was possibly the most awesome opportunity I could have ever imagined because in 1999. Actually, yesterday, the 20th, was the 20th anniversary of Macau, China being released from Portuguese rule.
Really?
So until December 20th, 1999, Macau was a colony of Portugal. Really. So, it totally coincidentally, me and my world history class were finishing up our unit on imperialism. Mm-hmm. And the teachers that were there were alive during the transition. So they experienced Portuguese rule and Chinese rule. And they shared their experience of the transition with us. Which, from that historian brain, is yours going off like crazy? Mine went crazy. So, but one of the teachers is in charge of teaching civics.
Okay.
And teaching them the laws and the rules and how to follow them and what they are. Strict lady. I'm pretty sure she was short-circuiting when she was in my classroom. because like the American classrooms are definitely not as like regimented in discipline as the Chinese classrooms are. For good and or ill. You can have your opinion on that. But I was watching her just like I'm exaggerating, but she had these little twitches where she wanted to snap at my students. And
was it all like...
Yeah. She woo-sawed.
A lot of heavy breathing.
But I was just like, there's part of me that wanted to just be like, if you want to yell at him, go ahead and do it. Do it in Chinese, too. Tell them you love them, but in a really angry tone. They'll shut up. Like German, ich liebe dich, ah!
German always sounds angry.
Yeah, it is. That kind of sucks. It's like the Samuel L. Jackson of languages. I fucking love you! Ah! Everything he says sounds scary, even if it's the most wonderful thing in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was a 40-minute episode. That was a good stopping point.
Yeah.
I'm just going to cut it right there.
Yeah, we just cut it right there.
We got some planning to do.
Yeah.
On some other things.
Right.
So we have this awesome tool
now
that we have to take advantage of.
Right.
Have a good day, guys. I hope you learned as little as possible from us.
I think they learned too much.
Oh, they might.
We have to remedy that for next episode. We're out of practice.
Yeah.
This was too educational.
The problem is I'm a teacher, so...
You're in the business of informing.
I know.
So you literally, in your day job is being informative, and your night job is being barely informative.
Damn it. Yeah. Well, next time.
Yeah.
Godspeed, y'all.